We are starting now the second part of the lecture, and there are many ways to analyze Judaism and the Torah and to prove that it can never ever be given by a human being. No human being whatsoever, even all the people combined with all the technology that we have today, take the greatest people ever lived, combine all their intelligence together, they won't be able to write one chapter in the Torah. Not even one. No people, as smart as they may be, can tell the future, what's going to happen 1,000 years or 2,000 years later. No people in the creation has complete control on nature. Nobody. Do you know a person that know any species, any animal that lives here, ever lived here before? Obviously, we don't have this ability. Let's see in details some of the things that are appeared in the Torah that leaves no doubt that can never be written by a human being. First way to analyze the Torah is the way it was transferred from generation to generation. The second way is the mathematical equal skips that the Torah has. There are hidden codes inside the text. Mathematical minimal, I repeat, minimal is very important. Codes, equal skips of letter that the creator, the writer of the Torah planted words in this time, 3,320 years ago, and those words apply to our generation, leaders in our time, events that we have right now, current events, are appeared inside the Torah. Obviously, no person was able to write about what's going on in our time 3,320 years ago. As I said before, prophecies. The Torah is full of prophecies. Of course, the prophets is full of prophecies. There are divine wisdom in a book that a person was unable to know. There is complete control which comes to psychology and archaeology. Everything the archaeologists ever found, first they digged inside the Torah and inside the prophets and the kings. And based on the Torah over there, they knew where to start digging. They did not look in any other book. The source of all the archaeologists all over the world is what the Torah says. When the Torah spoke about King David, they knew where he lived and they were looking for his tower and his city, and they found it. When the Torah speaks about the altar that Joshua built after they came out of Egypt and he took Moses' place, it's a mountain called Eval. They went over there and they found that altar. If without the source, they'll never know where to find. So that's archaeology. The archaeology confirmed the story of the Torah 100%. Psychology. What does it mean, psychology? Psychology means if Moses, God forbid, is a faker like some people want to claim, why would he write about himself in a Torah that is stuttering? You will never find one derogatory comment about Jesus in the New Testament. One hint against Muhammad in the Quran. Never, in no Muslim books or Christian books, ever you'll find criticism against those heroes. But when you review Jewish books, the 24 books of the Bible, they are full of criticism. God gave it to the prophets or to the king of that time or to Moses before that. And the Torah and the prophets and the kings is full of criticism. Negative comments against the Jewish heroes, the leaders, if they did something wrong. All the positive as well. But the negative is mentioned 100%. Nobody covered things under the rug. Why? Because it's an objective divine book. All the other books were written by people who worship that symbol. And obviously they were not interested to write the truth about them. Only what they wanted you to know. But the Torah, since it's divine, it's giving you 100% objective picture. That's why you hear that Moses was punished. He did not enter the land. God got upset at him. And many other examples. And some of the mistakes that the nation of Israel did. If a faker wrote it, he will never tell you that God got upset at the Jews and gave them here and there punishments. He would never write such a thing. Only the good things. So obviously we see that it's not a fake book. It was originally given by the Creator. Also, many other things inside the Torah leaves no doubt whatsoever that the Torah was never able to be written by few sources. Only one source from the beginning to the end. because it's built in a special way that one person could never continue where the previous one stopped. That's also hidden codes inside the text that one would never be able to continue because he didn't know the hidden codes. Only in our times when we have computers, we are able to find such things. But in the old days, there was no way to know. So obviously people who wrote it could never know where to continue because it's full of codes from the beginning of the book to the end. So this is some of the ways to prove that the Torah is divine. It gets better as we move on. The first actual proof that I want to show from science is that the Torah describes what the Jews are allowed to eat. And this is what the Torah says to the Jews in Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 9. The Torah says, this is what you're allowed to eat in the water. Everything that have fins and scales, you are allowed to eat. God said to the Jews, I put 2 witnesses in the body of all the species who live in the oceans. If you find scales and fins in the body of that creature, you're allowed to eat it. Whether it's a fish, whether it's something else, it doesn't matter. 72% of the world is water. How deep we were able to reach? So the indication that we have is 11.5 kilometers, which is about 8 miles, about. Very deep. There are more than 40,000 different kinds of fish. There are billions of different species in the ocean. When the Torah was given, more than half of them were not exist. Why? They merge together, they create new species all the time. Artificially, scientists all over the world are mixing between different kinds of species to create new ones for different reasons. Those who are there are included in what the Torah says to the Jews. In any generation, the Torah is for you and your children until the end, the Torah says, forever. What you want to eat needs to have 2 signs, fins and scales. This is the written part of this commandment. What about the oral part? When we go into the oral Torah, so the Mishnah was given in groups, Mishnayot. In the chapter of Nida, chapter 6, the 9th Mishnah, this is what it says. Everything that have scales, for sure have fins. I repeat. Everything you're going to find in the ocean from now until the end of this material world. If you found scales that you scratch it and they are falling off, at the same body, I promise you, you also have fins, guarantee. You don't have to investigate, guarantee. Which means, if a Jew is sick in a hospital and somebody brought him half a fish, he doesn't see the fins, but he sees scales. Here, you can cook it for yourself for lunch. And he sees scales, he doesn't need to see the fins. Why? The oral law promise by the creator of all fish and all the oceans, if you have scales, for sure you have fins. Don't worry about it. First question, why the writer of the book is trying to impress me by scientific knowledge? The Torah, after all, is a religious book. It's instructions what to do spiritually. Why are you trying to impress me that you have a complete knowledge about the whole world? Question number 1. Question number 2, do you know a person that is able to write 3,320 years ago that you will never find from billions and trillions of things that are moving in all the oceans? You'll never find even one that has scales and doesn't have fins. It's impossible. In order for you to write such a thing, you have to write simultaneously everything that exists right now in a world and to write. You will never find such a thing. No person has this ability, only the Creator himself. Plus, we see right here that he has a complete control about the future, because he was not talking only about his time. He's talking from his time until the end of the creation, which means forever, as long as the world exists. Do you know a person that has complete knowledge and control to prevent such a thing from happening in the future? That one day they'll be able to merge 2 different species and create something with scales that doesn't have fins? Just all we have to find is one snake with scales. Snakes don't have fins, they have tails. That, God forbid, will be the first mistake in Judaism. Obviously, something like I just mentioned to you now could never ever be written by a human being as brilliant as he may be. Only by the creator of the world. And this is one out of thousands of examples. We're going to show a few of them there. The rest you can always find later on. As I'm going now to the second example, to the second proof, as the Torah says that when it comes to eating, also there is a formula. Two witnesses. It needs to chew his cud, the animal. In order for the animal to be kosher, it needs to chew his cud. The animal processes their food. And have split hooves in the bottom, in their legs. That's the two signs in order for it to be kosher. Today, we know we have in the archives more than 2 million different species of animals. 2 million, we name them. And it's very interesting that the Torah comes and describes to the Jews which animals are kosher, like cow and sheep and even a deer. It's kosher animals that if a person wants to eat it, a Jew is allowed. It's very interesting. The Torah says, but be careful. There are 4 animals that may fool you and they are not kosher. Don't be fooled by them. This is in Leviticus chapter 11. The Torah says, everything that have split hooves and chew his cud is kosher. But the Torah says, but be careful. There are 4 exceptional animals that may fool you. They may fool you. How they fool you? They have only one sign. And this one sign may lead you to think that they're also kosher. Be careful, they are not. Only 4 out of 2 million. The camel, the pig, the rabbit, and the hare. Either they chew their cud or they have split hooves. Chewing his cud means after the food arrives to the stomach, it comes out, it exits the body into the mouth or in the back of the animal, and the animal swallow it again back into the system and redigest it. You know, so that's called ma'ale gera. In Hebrew means chew his cud. There are different ways of doing it. The concept is to redigest the food, re-swallow it and redigest it. The rabbit, the hare, the camel, and the pig, 4. All it needs that one person, one scientist or anybody will bring a 5th kind of animal. It will bring something out of nowhere and say, I just found this animal and it also has one sign. But it's not mentioned in the Torah. So therefore there are more than 4. But the Torah said there's only 4. What happened to God? He did not know what he created? He doesn't see the future? Torah says he controls the future 100%. In that case, we will have to admit that it will be the first mistake in the Torah. Don't forget, 3,320 years. Everybody is still searching for that animal. What do you think? They're going to find one? The answer is absolutely not. Why? Torah is divine. God gave it, and he knows what he put here in the world. We have to admit that no human being, even today with today's technology, can memorize 2 million different names of animals, to know their internal creation and their external creation, to see all of them simultaneously, how they mix and create all kinds of new things, and to promise that there are only 4 and not more. That's obviously divine information, not human information. We move on. I'm going to the next example. We are now going into some astronomy, and as I said, the Torah has many different proofs that we use, and this is one of the examples. The Torah says, speaking about Earth, our world is a round world. It's in space, standing in space with no foundation. It turns around its center 1,700 kilometers an hour. And it shifted a little bit to the side, 28 degrees. And we are one of the 9 stars in the Milky Way. This is information that we know from science. And also, obviously, the Torah is speaking about it. But I'm going now to show a part from the Zohar, from the Kabbalah, the mystic part of Judaism, as the Zohar describing many discoveries that we found only in the last 500 years. But remember, this was written 2,000 years ago, but it was given to Moses 3,320 years ago in Mount Sinai as a part of the entire Torah. The Zohar says, the Kabbalah, the whole world is turning around like a ball. Until 500 years ago, everybody argued about the shape of the world. Is it flat? Is it round? Is it has different shapes? No one was sure 100%. Columbus, when he went on his famous trip and ended up in the same port, then the argument ended. It was 500 years ago. People realized the world is round. The Zohar was 1500 years before Columbus. And the Zohar said the entire world is round like a ball and is in a round movement. Two major discoveries. Not only is round like a ball, it's also moving, even though we cannot see it. We are here. Obviously, a person was unable to know such a thing at that time. So we are turning around. The third discovery that we can find in the Kabbalah, in the Zohar, and there are people who live in different parts of the ball. One in one side and the others on the other sides. And they are different in their face, image, and color based on the climate of every one of these continents where they live. Very interesting. So, only 100 years ago, in the beginning of the previous century, the scientists found that the genes of the people are influenced by the air and the climate where they live. So if your genes are into the white color, or you have genes that go into the dark color, it's all depend where you're going to live. After hundreds of years, the white slowly can turn into dark, or the other way around. So that's explain why in some parts of the world it's all black people, and in other parts it's all blonde people with blue eyes. And the only nation who looks like everyone are the Jews. You have Chinese Jews, you have black Jews, you have blonde Jews, you have dark Jews, you have Jews that looks like European, all kinds of Jews. Because the Jews is the only nation who were moving from one place to the other, running away from the pogroms and the problems that they had. They always live in different countries. They never had, in the last 2,000 years, a place to live after the destruction of the Second Temple. So the Zohar says the genes are influenced by the air that we breathe. Today it's a scientific fact. The fourth one, it's all in one page in the Zohar. The fourth one is, it says that you should know that once it's darkness in one side of the ball, it's light to the other, which means he knew the relationship between earth and the sun. The sun is 100 times wider than the earth. And the distance from the sun to the earth, it starts, the heat inside the sun is 15 million degrees Celsius. By the time it gets to earth, it's 30 degrees, 35, 25, exactly what the people need to live. Very interesting. And the Zohar continue and say there are people on the top of the ball, and there are people in the bottom. What do we learn from here? Gravity. People are not falling into space, a magnet. The Zohar knew about it way before the scientists found out about it. And also, one other thing, it says there's a place on earth that it's always light there. And there's a short period of time of darkness. He's talking about the North Pole, when they have long seasons that it's all dark, and they have long seasons that it's all white. But even when it's all dark, when it's all light out there, there's a very short period of time that it becomes dark and then becomes light again. Now remember, the first time in history that a person arrived to the North Pole was 1908, only 100 years ago. This was written 2,000 years ago. 1900 years before a person stepped on the North Pole. How did he know? A person could never write such a thing in a book so many years ago. So this is all information that leaves no doubt that the person was unable to write it. Only the creator of the world was able to give such information. And the Jews never claim that they discover it or that they are great scientists. No. They admit this is all that what we received in Mount Sinai from our God. We did not discover it. We just have it, and we transfer it from generation to generation. The next example, it's from the Talmud and the chapter of Brachot, page 32. speaking about the number of the stars in universe. As we know, until the year 1608, when Galileo Galilei came with his telescope, which was 6 feet wide, the whole entire world, they were thinking that there is between 6,000 to 8,000 stars in the entire universe. Obviously, we couldn't see more than that, so that's what people thought. They were standing on mountains and counting the number of the stars, and this was basically what people believed. When Galileo raised his telescope for the first time, they found that there are many more stars that we couldn't see. So the world understood that there are many more galaxies that we couldn't see until now. When we review the Gemara, the Talmud, we find something very interesting. The Gemara brings a conversation between God and the nation of Israel, of the chief rabbis of that time, and God saying to the chief rabbis, to the sages, I created 12 sections in heaven, 12 different sections. This is, by the way, where the horoscope is coming from, the signs and everything, the 12 signs. And in each section, I created 30 army. And in each army, I created 30 legion. And in each legion, I created 30 raton. And in each raton, I created 30 karaton. And in each karaton, I created 30 gistera. And in each gistera, I hung 365,000 multiplied by 10,000 stars, which is 4 more zeros. And all of that I created for the nation of Israel. And you have the nerve to ask, how did I forget you and how did I neglect you? So it's a conversation between the sages to God. They complain after the destruction of the second temple, dear God, how did you do that to us? And the answer of God is, this is what I created, and all of that I did for my children, the nation of Israel. As the Torah says in another place, you are my children, I chose you from all the nation to be mine. So it's clear in many different places. And I did all of that for you. And you have the nerve to think that I would ever leave you? Let's calculate together what it comes down to. 12 section, it's 12 times 30 times 30 times 30 times 30 times 30 times 365,000. Add 4 more zeros. What do we get? 10 to the power of 19 stars, which means 1 and 18 digits after. This was written 2,000 years ago approximately, and that's actually was given to Moses in Mount Sinai 3,320 years ago. And let's see what the scientist has to say in our generation about the number of the stars in the universe. In 1990, Dr. T. Brewhurst from Queen Mary College in London had a research with mega computers, and he found there's 10 to the power of 19 stars in the universe. The interesting part is that the Gemara divides it to 7 different categories. We have what the Gemara say mazalot, sections, the scientists called galactic cell. What the Gemara says chayil, army, local groups of galaxies, the science called. What the Torah say legion, they call galaxies. What the Torah say raton, they call galactic areas. What the Torah calls karaton, they say groups of galaxies. What the Torah says gistera, they say globular group of stars. What the Torah says stars, they also call stars, which is very interesting. 7 sections, each one is inside the other, all together 10 to the power of 19 stars. Now let's think rationally. 2,000 years ago, the Gemara, the Babylonian Talmud in Babylon, was written after 1,300 years that the Jews transferred verbally from rabbi to student. Finally was concluded and written by the president of Israel, Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, the president. So over there, it gives us information that nobody could dream about. Nobody could dream 2,000 years ago to write such a number of stars. Actually, the Gentiles came to the Jews and say, you have to make up your mind. You said in the Torah that God blessed Abraham, that his descendants, is going to multiply like the sand on the ground and like the stars in the universe. So it seems to be a contradiction here. What did God do with Abraham? Did he curse him or did he bless him? If we go by the sand on the ground, there are, who knows, trillions. If we go by the stars, there's only 6,000, maximum 8,000 stars. That's what they used to claim before Galileo. When 1608, when Galileo came, 400 years ago only, they were shocked. The Jews were always right. The Jews were answering them all these years. We don't go by what our eyes see. We go by the instructions of the Creator of the world gave us. We are not scientists. We came here, we only follow what the Torah told us. So it's very interesting. Because now they all found out that the Jews were right. The stars in the universe is plenty. 10 to the power of 19 stars. Obviously, a person was not able to write such a thing 2,000 years ago. As I move on, I'm getting to the next example. The next proof is the renewal of the moon. It's very interesting. Before we show the proof, that there are different ways of calculating the year. We go by the sun, we go by the moon, we can go by both of them. Muslims, they go by the moon only, which the year of the moon is 354 days. The Christian, they go by the year of the sun, which is 365 days and few hours. The Jews, they go by the sun and also by the moon at the same time. Now remember, there's 11 days and few hours gap between the year of the sun and the year of the moon, which means every 3 years approximately there's a gap of 1 month. It adds up, 3 times 11, almost a month. It's very interesting because the Muslims, since they go by a shorter year, the fast of the Ramadan is moving every few years from the summer to the winter. The holidays are moving to the summer, to the winter. The Christians also had a problem with the calendar, so every 4 years they have February 29th. Only every 4 years, once every 4 years. The Jews have supposedly a problem. What is the problem? Inside the text of the Torah, the written Torah, it says that God says to Moses to celebrate the holiday of Passover. And it must be always in the spring, always, not in the winter, not in the summer. It has to be in the spring. And actually God named Passover in different names. One of the names is the holiday of the spring. Since it has to be on the spring, how do you make it fall always in the spring when you have a problem between the year and the year of the sun and the year of the moon? Comes the oral Torah, and this is what it says. In the Midrash, it says, at that time, God taught Moses all the calculations of the moon and the year of the moon, and informed him how to calculate leap years. As the Torah says, observe the month of the spring and make Passover. Which means he had to teach him the secret how to balance between the year of the sun and the year of the moon. And it's very interesting. Every 19 years, the Jewish people push into the calendar seven extra months. Every 2 to 3 years, we have 13 months in a year. Instead of 12 months, an extra month. Why? If Passover is about to fall short around March, when it's still cold, we pushed an extra month into the calendar, which makes it Adar Aleph and Adar Bet, duplicate. First Adar, second Adar. This is a Jewish month. So by doing that, we postpone Passover by a month and it falls in the spring. Every 2 to 3 years, it's still falling short. Then we push it again by 1 month, and therefore we make sure that Passover always falls in the spring. Now, after this introduction, let's go into the Gemara, into the Talmud, and chapter of Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year. And it's in page 25. This is the Gemara. What the Gemara says, it's incredibly, unbelievable. It's hard to believe. The Gemara says that 200 witnesses came to the president. His name was Rabban Gamliel, to testify about the renewal of the moon. Now remember, there was no calendars yet. Today we have a calendar. The grandson of Hillel, the president of Israel, approximately 1700 years ago, he wrote a calendar, and until this day we use this brilliant calendar. But before that, the Torah says that two witnesses come to the Jewish court. They knew approximately when to expect the renewal of the moon, which means at the beginning of a new month in Judaism. So the witnesses just testified, we saw it right now, and they announced that it's the first day of the month, and they begin to count manually the days, and therefore they know when the holidays are. It's very interesting that 200 witnesses came in a cloudy day to the president of Israel, Rabban Gamliel. He was sitting in a court and waiting. And they told him, right now, it's the renewal of the moon. And he told them, I'm very sorry, all of you are wrong. He's sitting inside the building, they came from the outside. How can we all be wrong? He said, we have a calculation that we received from generation to generation, all the way to Moses. For 1300 years, it passed by tradition. What is it? The renewal of the moon can never be less than 29 days and a half. And 2/3 of the hour, and 73 parts of the minute. Let's calculate. After we calculate 29 days, we all know what it is. In a half, it's 12 hours. And 2/3 of the hour, it's 40 minutes. 2/3 of the hour. And 73 parts of the minute. After the calculation, we receive 29.53059. That's the calculation of the Torah. Now let's review what the scientific world has to say about the minimal cycle of the moon according to their research and measurement. Let's see, in front of me there's a page from NASA, and they published this. It's called Earth-Moon System, the cycle and the comparison between the Earth and the Moon. NASA came with an amazing number, which is 29.530588. 5 digits after the decimal point. The Torah say 530590. They say 530588, which means 2/10,000 of a second difference. Take a second, divide it to 10,000 pieces. Take 2 pieces out, that's the difference between NASA and the Torah. Now NASA is with satellites, with thousands of employees, with billions of dollars budgets over the years. They came to a brilliant calculation which is very close to the exact number. The Torah, in a primitive generation, there was no technology, no satellites, no mega computer, no ways to measure the movements of all the stars. The Torah gave us the number just as a gift. This is what it is. Who told us? The creator of the moon. The Germans in 1965 in Berlin, they updated the number, and they are closer to the number of the Torah. In their calculation, they came up with a number that now it's the difference right now is 1/10,000 of a second, which means take a second divided by 10,000, take 1 piece out. That's the difference between the Torah and the German research. The question is, do you think there's even a slight of a chance that a person 2,000 or actually 3,320 years ago when we received the Torah, that's where the source comes from, anybody was able to even dream about writing a number with 6 digits after the decimal points? There was no even calculator. No calculators until 30, 40 years ago. Who could have known such brilliant calculation of the moon to such an exact number with no technology like today? Do you think a person was able to write such a thing? The answer, absolutely not. It's all divine information. As I move on to the next proof, and the next proof is speaking about the sun. We know that the temperature in the center of the sun is 15 million Celsius, 15 million degrees Celsius. As slowly we go towards the edge of the sun, the temperature dropped to 2 million degrees Celsius. And the sun has a shell, like an orange has a shell. Inside the shell of the sun, the temperature is 2 million degrees Celsius. Outside of the shell, it's only 6,000 degrees Celsius. A tremendous drop. And it's very interesting because the distance between the center of the sun to the edge of the sun, it's much, much longer than between the inside of the shell to the outside of the shell. The shell absorbs all the radiation to protect earth from burning. It's very interesting. So when we review the Torah says in the Midrash, in the oral Torah, the sun has a cover. That's appeared in Bereshit Rabbah. It's a part of the Midrash, chapter 6. And the Midrash speaking about a verse in Tehillim, in King David's book. And this is what it's in chapter 19, verse 5. Psalms, and it says, God put the sun inside a cover. And the Torah says that this cover protecting us from burning. Now remember, when we look at the sun, there's no way to see in the sun that the sun has a cover. It looks like a round ball of fire. Nobody can see a shell. Today, with the technology that we have, with different machinery, we are able to detect that. The scientist, Dr. Vidal, a major astronomer in a Greenwich British agency, this is what he writes in his book, The Army of Heaven. Those layers that surround the sun absorb all the radiation that comes from the center of the sun. This is what we call the cover. If this radiation will get to Earth, even for 1 second, it will burn the entire place immediately. So it's very interesting, because today they know that there is a shell, there's a cover. The question, who could have known 3,000 years ago to write such a thing in a book? Unless if you receive it from the Creator himself. I move to the next proof. And for those who knows, in the time of the temple, there was the first temple, the second temple. After the Babylonian destroyed the first temple approximately 2,600 years ago, and between the first temple to the second temple, there was 70 years of break. And then they rebuilt the temple, and it was destroyed 420 years later. So altogether, a period of 900 years with 70 years break in between. It's the destruction of the second temple approximately 2,000 years ago. Now the high priest, the Kohanim, a Jew that his name is Cohen, he comes from the descendants of Aaron. Aaron is the brother of Moses. And God blessed him to be the high priest, the servant in the holiest place on earth, which is the holy temple in the Moriah mountain, which Jerusalem by the western wall. And the only way the high priest can enter the temple is when they pure, spiritually. We're not talking about clean or not clean. We're talking about spiritually pure. They are pure Kohen and impure. And how does a Kohen become impure? By touching a dead body. This is all spiritual, mystical things. If the Kohen touches a dead body, he becomes impure immediately. How do you purify him? By taking a red cow, slaughtering the red cow. What does it mean, red cow? A cow that is completely red with no black hair, no brown hair, no white hair, only red. How many red cows we had in history? 9. And the Torah told us that we're going to have altogether 9 red cows. So we're waiting for the last one. Hopefully when the third temple will be rebuilt, according to the prophecies of the prophet, we're going to have one last red cow. But in the meantime, 9 already passed away. After you slaughter and burn the ashes, you mix with special spring water from Jerusalem, and you splash it over the high priest, the Kohanim, and you make them pure. And that's the law. Now comes the Torah and say some rules about the red cow. Now I'm using this as a proof, as definite proof that this could never be given by a human being. The Torah says, how do you know which cow is kosher and not? First, you have to make sure that it doesn't have any other hair but red. Okay. Second, It's not enough to have a red cow. You have to get a red cow that nobody ever used that cow to work with that or to put any weight on the back of the cow. If a person had a red cow in his farm and he put a bag of flour on top of that red cow, this cow cannot be used. It's obsolete. How would we know? There's no way to know. So the Torah asks a question. Is a Jew allowed to buy a red cow from a non-religious person or from a Gentile that he doesn't have an understanding about red cow? We just have a red cow and he wants to sell it to the Jews. Can we rely on his word that this cow was never used? Since obviously he didn't know the importance of that cow. Maybe he used it already. And when he found out that you're not allowed to use it, not necessarily is going to tell you the truth, because the difference between a regular cow to a red cow could be millions of dollars in our time. So the answer of the Torah, absolutely yes. You can buy it from him and you don't even have to trust his word. There's ways to tell. As usual, 2 witnesses, 2 signs. And this is what the oral Torah brings us a story. The Torah says there was one Gentile. One day he had a red cow, and he realized that this is an important thing, that he got very lucky. He asked his neighbor, and they told him, the neighbor, that the Jews will pay him any amount of money. When finally the regular price at that time was 4 coins of gold, he raised the price to 1,000 coins of gold. And the treasury of the temple came with money, and they had to agree because they need that red cow. So they told him, tomorrow morning we'll come with a bag with 1,000 coins of gold and we'll buy this cow from you. Make sure it's ready for us. That Gentile didn't want to give them what they want. So he went and put a bag on top of that cow and he said, you know what? I'll sell them the cow, but I don't want them to have the cow as they wish to have. When the Jews came in the morning, they spilled 1,000 coins of gold on the table, and he couldn't believe seeing so much gold. He brought the red cow out, and the Jews said, before you touch the money, we want to examine the cow. One rabbi looked at the eyes of the cow, the other one looked at the neck of the cow with a magnifying glass, checking something. The Gentile didn't understand what's going on. And after a minute, the rabbis told him, we're very sorry, there's no deal. The deal is off. What happened? You put from yesterday to today, you put weight on the back of the cow. The Gentile asked, how do you know that I put weight? You were here to see? So we don't need to be here. We know God told us when he gave us the Torah in Mount Sinai, the secret of this red cow. What is the secret of this red cow? Once you put weight on the back of it, or even you sit on the cow, or any weight is put on the back of the cow, from that moment, the eyes of the cow become cross-eyed. It doesn't go straight as it was, ever again. And there is another sign. There are 2 hairs in the neck. Those 2 hairs are falling down, and there's no way to raise them back. Never. You can brush it as much as you want. They keep falling down. Those are the 2 signs to know that this red cow was used, and now it became obsolete. Now I want to ask you a question. What human being would even dream to look in the hair of the cow? There's probably millions of hairs. First of all, how would he know that this is one of the signs? How does he know where those 2 hairs? It's from millions of hairs. Where to look for 2 hairs out of millions? Where exactly they are? How would he know that after you put weight, those 2 hairs are falling down? What's the connection? There's no way to know. Nobody would even imagine such a thing. How would a person know that after you put a weight on a red cow, the eyes become cross-eyed? When you use a regular cow or an ox, you put as much as weight as you want, the eyes are still staying straight. But the red cow, there's something unique about it. The only way to know that was to receive this information from the creator of the cows, the creator of the whole world. There's no other way that a person would know what to look for. And this, for another example that we use, leaves no doubt that the Torah, and this is, remember, this is the oral Torah, and now, needless to say, the written Torah. The oral Torah, speaking about this, can never be given by a human being. I move on. By the way, at the end of that story, that this Gentile went inside and hung himself and committed suicide. And after seeing what he just had in his hand, and he blew it up. And we move on to the next example. The arguments, if the world is round, took place for many, many years. As I mentioned before, when Columbus went around the world and he arrived to the same port, basically the argument was over. This was 500 years ago. The truth is that only ignorance made us believe that the argument should have finished 500 years ago, because if we read the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 22, it says that the world is round. Ayoshev al chug haaretz, which means God is watching the earth, and the earth is moving in a circle. And even Rashi, one of the commentators on the Torah, which lived in France 950 years ago, he himself, as a commentator on the Torah, lived 450 years before Columbus. And he writes clearly, round, it's going in circle, the earth. So obviously you see that the prophet 2,600 years ago, 2,100 years before Columbus, it's written in Isaiah that the world is round. Where was the argument coming from? Only from ignorance. It's a verse inside the Bible. Even Christians and Muslims believe in this Bible. But yet, many scientists and philosophers were arguing if the world is flat or round or different shape, when you have a clear verse inside the Bible. I always said that the biggest danger to the life of a person is ignorance. Not necessarily only in religion. It could be in computer. You don't know. You can waste hours every day. If you don't know the functions of the computer, you waste a lot of time. In medicine, in accounting, in many different things, the most important thing is the purpose of life, which is to follow the test that God sets for us. If you don't know the rules, there's no way to succeed. But we'll talk about it later. As we move on, the next example that I would like to talk about is the Gemara in Babylonian Talmud, in the chapter of Megillah, page 6. The Gemara is speaking about the foundation of Germany. And the Gemara says that Rabbi Yitzchak says, in the name of Jacob, one of the three fathers, that Jacob says to God, don't let my brother Esau succeed in his plan. His plan is to destroy my descendants. Remember, this is twin brothers, came from the same mother, Jacob and Esau. And in their lifetime, they were already enemies. And their descendants, the descendants of Jacob, his name was changed to Israel in the Torah, and the Jews came from him. And Esau was the European, the Germans, the Nazis, and many other countries that came from him. And it's very interesting, because this is now the Torah describing Germany 2,000 years before Germany was founded. There was no country Germany 2,000 years ago. Nobody could know the name. But it's inside the Talmud, clearly. The Talmud says that Jacob was hoping that God will not make Esau successful. Why? Because his descendants will arm the nation of Israel. And the Gemara says, this is Germany of Edom. Edom is Esau. That if they will succeed, they will try to destroy the whole world. And comes the Gemara and say, you should know, there are 300 tribes in the country of Germany of Edom. This was 2,000 years ago. Only 200 years approximately ago, there was a person named Bismarck who took all the barbarian tribes in Germany and combined them into the German Republic. After he did that, later, years after, it became Germany. And how did he make Germany? From what tribes? Bavaria, Silesia, Westphalia, all these tribes. He combined them together. And if you open encyclopedia, the word Germany, you're going to be amazed. It's clearly, I'm quoting from the Hebrew encyclopedia, but all the encyclopedias copy one from the other. Germany had 300 tribes that united together to one country, to one. It's very interesting. In the Hebrew Encyclopedia, it's in page 432, Germany. You can check in any other source. The question that I have is, who could have known first that there will be a country that comes out of this Asaph from the Bible that will be called Germany? Remember, when it was written, there was no Germany. Nobody knew that name. Who could have ever dreamed that this Germany will be a combination of 300 tribes? Do you think a person, a human being, it could be a brilliant human being? Do you think he could have such knowledge 1800 years before Germany will be born? From where? Where did he get this information from? The answer is, it's all divine information that was given to us by the Creator of the world. By the way, speaking about Germany, in an interview with Adolf Hitler himself, it's also, I'm quoting from the Hebrew Encyclopedia, in the word anti-Semitism, page 530, they interview Hitler. It comes from conversation with Brauching, conversation with Hitler. And this is what he says. Yes, we are barbarians. It's an honor to us to be barbarians. I'm releasing humankind from the spiritual cord and from the tortures, from the despicable tortures of this illusion that call conscious and ethic. Two defects Judaism brought to life. One in the body and one in the soul. In the body it's called circumcision, and in the soul it's called conscience. This is all Jewish invention. The war in this world is only between us and them, the Germans and the Jews, and everything else is all illusion. It's very interesting, because whatever he say, he didn't even know what he's saying. It started right there in the Torah, when Jacob and Esau, if you read in the beginning, in the first few chapters, it described. It started there. The descendants of Esau continue what their father wanted to do. And the Torah gave us the name, Germany. Is it possible that this information came out of people? For sure not. Speaking about the Holocaust, in the Torah, many people ask this famous question, where was God in the Holocaust? It's a good question. But this question, unfortunately, comes from ignorance. Why ignorance? If the Torah was not mentioned, if the Torah was not mentioning the Holocaust, then I understand. But since the Torah described the Holocaust 3,250 years before it started, where the question comes from? The Torah said that once the Jews will be assimilated with all the Gentiles, which it's forbidden to them, God did not give them permission, and they leave the Sabbath, they leave the covenant, they take off their yarmulke, and they behave like the Gentiles, they forget about religion, and obviously many other problems that we had. There will be time that I'm going to close my eyes, like I'm not there. Why? Because the Jews has the nerve to say, where is God? I will show them where is God. I will not be there. I will block my eyes from seeing their torture. You may ask, okay, how do we know that speaking here is speaking about the Holocaust? The Jews had many other pogroms and problems, the destruction of the first temple, the second temples. Millions of Jews were murdered, not only from 60 years ago. How do we know that we're speaking about the Holocaust? It's very interesting. Open Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 16 to 18. And this is how it starts. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, and God told Moses, you're going to lay down with your father, which means you're going to pass away. And this nation is going to rebel against me and follow foreign gods in the countries where they're going to live, and would leave me and annul my covenant that I made with them. And at that day, I'm going to be very angry, and I would leave them and block my eyes from them. And they're going to have many tragedies. And at that day, they will scream, God is not with us. That's why we have so many tragedies. And I will hide my face at that day for all the rebellions that they had against me, following foreign gods, foreign religions. This is Deuteronomy 31, verse 16 to 18. Inside that text, and God told Moses, in Hebrew is Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. The word Moshe, it's 3 letters, Mem, Shin, and Hey. You take the Hey, the last letter of that word Moses, you count 50 letters, you get the letter Shin. You count 50 letters, you get the letter Vav. You count 50 letters, you get the letter Aleph. You count 50 letters, you get the letter A. What do you get altogether? Ha-Shoah, the Holocaust. 3,250 years before it came to the world, inside the Torah it described from A to Z completely, with names. There are many other names in this chapter, describing Hitler and Eichmann and a final solution and Zyklon B. Many words that relates to the Holocaust appear in that chapter in equal mathematical skip. Is it possible that a person was able to know the entire Holocaust with names and details and write it in a book 3,320 years ago? Of course not. And what does the Torah say? This is a result of the assimilation, and Jews are rebelling against the Creator of the world, against their Father in heaven. So the Torah speaks about it. I don't understand why people ask, where was God in the Holocaust, if he already wrote in his book where he will be when times like this will arrive to the world. Of course, I'm not judging anybody. I'm not a judge and I have no say. My job here today is just to read to the people who are ignorant about Judaism. They may have knowledge in many other fields, but they never read the Torah once in their life. This is maybe the time to say that I've been giving lectures for about 15 years by now. Many, many lectures, radio shows, emails, speaking to people, meeting people, arguing with people. And I always ask in my lectures, and people can test in my website if I'm correct or not. I ask it a lot. People who are arguing with me how valid is the Torah, if it's the word of God or not, I ask them, did you ever read the Torah once in your life from the beginning to the end, word by word, to understand the simple meaning of it before you come to the argument? Did you ever read it once? 15 years, I didn't find one person yet that read the Torah from A to Z and knows the simple explanation and comes to the argument with the knowledge, the necessary knowledge. Not even once. How is it possible they have speeches against the Torah, they criticize the Torah, and have no idea what the Torah says? They know a verse here and there, a little bit that they heard on the news or they read in a newspaper, or a little bit in the Bible lesson in school or in high school, whatever it was. They do not know anything. Almost nothing. Not even 1%. Just imagine if I go to a convention of brain surgeons, and me, I have no idea what brain is all about. I don't know. I never learned about brain enough. And I come and I say, all of you are wrong. You don't know how to operate on the brain. You should be from here. You're doing it from the opposite side. And I give a bombastic speech. After a few minutes, one of the surgeons will ask me, excuse me, sir, where are you from? Where is your education about brain? What is your knowledge? Can you show us a diploma, a certificate that you know what you're talking about? Where are you coming from? Where did you graduate? And then I will say, no, I never learned about brain. Just imagine what a fool I'm going to look like. Do anybody from that moment on will take me serious? Absolutely not. So the point, why would you argue about something you never learned even once in your life? You want to come to the argument? There's a lot to learn. You don't want to learn, you don't want to dedicate the time, please do not argue about something you have no idea about. Let's move on. I'm going to the next proof. The Torah says that one of the 3 covenants that God made with the Jewish nation is circumcision. Every male born in the 8 days has to be circumcised. Now, of course, I told you before, you cannot understand one law without the oral law. Here, the Torah did not say where to cut. The Torah did not say what happens if the baby is yellow and is a life risk. The Torah did not say where to do the ceremony, in a day or at night. if it's permitted at night or not. The Torah did not say. What happened if he borns on the Sabbath and you have to circumcise him in the 8th day, which will be the next Sabbath? The Torah did not say. The written Torah did not say. But when you go to the oral laws, everything been said. Everything be taught to us from A to Z. Otherwise, we would never know how to start. Imagine if there was no oral Torah like some ignorance are claiming. God would give us a book full of instructions, and nowhere in the Torah it says how to do anything. And plus, we are subject to severe punishments. Be careful, some of the punishments are even execution. And God will never say to us how to do it, so what's the point of giving us the Torah? Just to tell us that there are 613 commandments and to tell us the name of those commandments? Where is the instruction how to observe the Sabbath? Where is the instruction how to make tefillin on the head? Where? How to make it? From what animal? What to write inside? What makes it kosher? What makes it not kosher? Where is the instruction with what tools to circumcise the baby? And how? Nowhere in the Torah. Obviously, there are information that appear separately. And by the way, if you read inside the text of the Torah, it says these are the Torahs, plural, that I put in the hand of Moses in Mount Sinai. Not Torah 1, Torahs, at least 2. Also, in another place in the Torah, it says that God told Moses, he's speaking to him about the sacrifice, and he told him, as I showed you in the mountain. But he does not describe what he showed him. He knew, Moses knew. And God told him, as I showed you in the mountain, which means he showed him a vision. How to do it. But it does not appear in the written Torah. It's very interesting, because if there would not be oral laws, when Moses come down from the mountain and bring them the Torah, and they would say, excuse me, Moses, okay, you told us to circumcise our baby, well, we don't know how to do it. He does not explain how to do it. So Moses said, just follow the written law. The word orla, this is the piece that we have to remove in a circumcision. It was not translated yet until Moses told them verbally, where is it in a body? So one person would think this is orla. The next person think this is orla, the air. The other one would say, no, it's the edge of this right here. One person saying, oh, no, this is what it means, the nails, to cut them. Nobody would know where orla is without the oral laws. Nobody would know how to cut. Nobody would know what to do after the cutting, and many other examples. So obviously, as you can see, 99.9% of Judaism, it's the oral laws that was given to Moses and right away was published to all the nation. Moses was teaching them one commandment after the other, how to do, what to do, when to do, what not to do, what's for men, what applies for women, what happens if you're a boss, you have employees, and many other examples. So the Torah says you have to circumcise every male born in the 8 days, and after you follow the instruction in the oral laws how to do it, we find something very interesting. The scientists, they found in our generation that what prevents us from bleeding too much is vitamin K. Vitamin K makes the blood clog the hole. If we have a cut in our body, it clogs the cut and makes sure that we do not lose all the blood in our body. Obviously, it's a life risk. The question first that we have to ask ourselves, what happens if we take a balloon and put 5 quarts of blood inside? And we take a very, very sharp needle and we make a hole in the bottom of this balloon. What will happen to all the water? It will drip completely to the floor. Everything, gravity, will make all the blood falls on the floor. If we hold the balloon like this, everything will drip to the floor. However, if we make a hole in the bottom of our feet, not all the blood from the body will drip to the floor. The blood will know that now my job is to clog the hole and make sure that I save the life of this person. Is it coincidence? Of course not. It's all planned. But besides the plan here, we see something very interesting. The scientists examine the level of vitamin K after the baby is born. In the first day, few percent. The next day, a little bit more. Every day, an additional few percentage in the vitamin K level in the body. Until we get to the 8 days, it's very interesting, finally the amount of vitamin K is sufficient enough to practice the circumcision on that baby. However, something very interesting is happening in the 8 days. When yet after the 8 days a person will have 100% vitamin K in his blood for the rest of his life, on the 8th day he has an additional of 10% vitamin K, 110% vitamin K in a human's body. One day in the entire life of a human being, when he has an extra 10% vitamin K, it's the 8 days. And this is secular scientists, nothing religious. I don't even know if they're Jewish or not, but by the names it seems that they are not. 100% vitamin K. Do you know a person 3,320 years ago that knew the behaving of the vitamin K in the entire life of a person? Something we just found out in the last 20 years. Actually, to be precise, it was published in New York in 1953, so more than 50 years, that's all. And it says until the 8 days there's not enough vitamin K. We find after the 8 days that the clogging materials are staying 100% for the rest of the person's life. However, in the 8 days we have an extreme raise in the vitamin K to 110%, only one day of the life of the person. It's very interesting. Hard to believe, you know, I mean, when people see so many proofs and still have doubts that this Torah was given by person or by the creator of the world, sometimes it seems more like an excuse, trying to avoid the truth because the truth obligates me to change my habits, my desires, to fight with my evil inclination. And that's one of the main excuses that people use to remove pressure from themselves. I always say, if the Torah would say in the last page, "Dear Jew, after you saw everything I taught you and gave you, I allow you to do whatever you want. You want to keep my laws, fine, it's good for you. You don't want, you don't feel like it, no problem, no hard feeling, no punishment. I'm not going to give you the reward that I promise, life of eternity and all the other rewards that I promise in the Torah. It's up to you, free choice. But if you don't keep it, you should know, no problem whatsoever with me. You just lost the reward, no punishment." Do you think there would be one person in the entire history that will deny the validity of the Torah? Do you think one person will dare to do it? No, of course not. Why? What for? It not obligates me. Why should I deny something so clear? The reason people deny it, because if I will agree that you're right, this is divine, comes the next question. So what's with you? How can you ignore divine laws? How can you harm yourself? After all, if not listening to your Creator, it's a very big risk. You can lose eternity. It's not a joke. It's better to lie to myself. No, it cannot be true. I don't believe in it. Why? Because otherwise the conscience bothers. To admit that I live in a lie all my life? How many brave people you know that willing to stand on a stage and say, "I believe 100%, I know 100%, I don't want to do it, I'm too lazy." Once in a blue moon you find a person. The next proof is the Western world. The Torah promise that the Western world will never collapse, never be destroyed. For those who know history, the temples was destroyed twice. First and second temple were surrounded with 4 walls like the Western wall today. When the Babylonians destroyed the temple, they knocked down 3 walls, but they left the Western wall. When the Romans came to destroy the temple 2,000 years ago, they knocked down 3 walls, but they left the Western wall. In between the Babylonians and the Romans, the Greeks came, the Greek Empire. And they burned the temple, they impured the oil. This is the holiday of Hanukkah. It came from that event. And they did not knock down the Western wall. In between, the last 2,000 years, the Seljukim, the Muslims, the Fatimim, the Armenians, so many, the Persians, so many different empires and countries occupied this area. None of them knocked down the Western Wall. There was an earthquake in Jerusalem that knocked down all the buildings, but the wall is still standing. In case you thought that the bricks, the big bricks that you see in the Western Wall is standing with cement, I have news for you. There's no cement. It's one brick on top of the other, no connection. One stand on the other, which means if there will be an earthquake, they should slide down on the people down there. But they're still standing all these years. The Torah promise, it appears in the Songs of Songs, chapter 2, verse 9. This is what it says in Hebrew, Ine ze omed kotlenu. Here is our Western world, is watching us and is standing in a present language. Here it is, which means it has to be always here it is, always. We go to the oral part of that, the Midrash, the Midrash Rabbi, it's called Midrash Shir HaShirim. And what does it say over there? It says that God swore to that wall that it will never ever fall down. So now it's even more simple than before. All we have to do, knock down the wall. You want to get rid of God and His orders? Very simple. Arrange somebody to knock down the Western Wall, and you'll find the first mistake in Judaism. After 3,320 years, you'll be famous. You'll be able to say, I'm the first one who found a mistake by knocking down the wall. Here it is. The verse is incorrect. But my suggestion to you is that doing that is playing with fire, perhaps risking your life, because God promised to the wall that He's protected, which means trying to do it is trying to interfere with the laws of God. And I don't want to say what could be the outcome, but it's very obvious. A person, a human being, as brilliant as he may be, could never even dream to write about a wall that he will never fall down. Never. And base his entire religion on that foundation. Which, remember, there were 4 walls. This wall, and this one, and that one, and the last one were all built from the same material by the same builder at the same time. Those 3 can fall down at any time. No protection. This one can never ever collapse. Do you know a person can promise such a thing and be right after 2,000 years? This Midrash was written approximately 1800 years when the wall was standing, after they knocked down the other 3 walls, and our sages wrote it, and they say we know it from tradition, that this wall that you see, all of us, this is 1800 years ago, will stay here forever. This is approximately 150 years after the Romans destroyed the temple. Everything there was no mosque there yet. Remember, Islam is only 1400 years old. So we're talking at least 450 years before the Muslims came to build their mosque there. So right there, the sages, the Jewish rabbis at that time, they told us we know in tradition, it passed from tradition, that this wall will always stay here and nobody can knock it down. Why? God is protecting us. It's the souvenir. It's a memory out of His holy temple. One other proof is basically speaking about nature. Everything in nature, when you heat it, expands. When you freeze it, it shrinks. Very interesting. There's one thing that behaves very, very strange. The water, when you heat them, they expand, they become even gas and start to fly up. However, when the water goes near freezing temperature, which is 4 degrees Celsius, 0 degrees Celsius is freezing point. It's 32 degrees Fahrenheit. But Celsius, it's 0 degrees. That's the freezing point. So now going to 4 degrees Celsius, you are very, very close to 0, to the freezing point. When the water sees that it's about to become ice, instead of continue to expand, ice is expanding, what happened to the water? They change their behaving against all odds. What will happen if the water continue to behave the way they should? The top layer of all the oceans would freeze and sink to the bottom. And the other layer will freeze and sink to the bottom. And the other top will freeze and sink to the bottom. After a few weeks, the entire ocean, which is 72% of the world is water, will be all of ice. One hard piece of ice. It's needless to say that all the fish and all the species that lives in the oceans will all die. And the worst part is that once the summer comes and they all defrost, it will make such a tsunami, it would flood the entire world and all the people will die. To prevent such a tragedy, the brilliant Creator interfered with the laws of creation and told the water, you behave according to my plan only when it gets to 4 degrees. Once it gets to 4 degrees, switch and change your behaving to the opposite side. What do you think? Is something like this possible to happen by coincidence for those who think the world is a random creation, explosion, whatever they call it? Obviously not. There are many, many examples like this. Many examples. Obviously, we don't have today the time to cover everything, but just the amount of information that I have right here in my laptop would be enough to speak 1,000 hours straight by giving one proof after the other, and it's not an exaggeration. It's accumulation of more and more proofs that I collected over the years, 15 years of work, and thank God, it's very, very brilliant. I would like to speak about the last proof for tonight. Is speaking about the codes, as I mentioned it before, once or twice. As we see, since we invented computer in the last 20 years, the computer helped us to find things that we couldn't see before. Not that they were not there. They were always in the Torah. We just didn't know what to look for and how to find it. We didn't have the ability. Inventing computers is a real shortcut. What we can do in 1 second would take us sometimes 100 years without the computer. Many years ago, Rabbi Weissmandel in Europe, just before the Holocaust, he had a photographic memory. And he saw inside the book of Exodus that there are information about Maimonides. Maimonides was a great rabbi, one of the greatest lived in the last 1,000 years. He lived in Spain, and then after a while, he had to escape to Egypt. And once he came to Egypt, he became the main doctor of the king there, his private doctor. And he wrote a book called Mishneh Torah, the explanation of all the oral laws, all the 613 laws. That's how his book starts, a list of 613 laws. He explained what does it mean, the purpose of each commandment, and more information. That's some information about Maimonides. He lived between 800 and 900 years ago in Egypt. So when we review the Torah, we find information about Maimonides. Make no mistake, the Torah was given approximately 2,400 years before Maimonides, the Rambam, was even born. So how does the Torah knows how to give us information about a rabbi that is going to be born 2,400 years later? Is it possible that a person can write information about us 2,000 or 3,000 years ago? Obviously not. Let's pay attention to the proof. The Torah says, God says to Moses, don't worry, Pharaoh will not listen to you, and he will not release my nation Israel out of Egypt. I'm hardening his heart to be stubborn and not to give up. Why? Because I want to make such miracles in Egypt that everybody will see the hand of God. And they will realize that you are my children and I'm making all these miracles for you, the Jewish nation. This is appearing in a chapter of Bo, Parashat Bo. It's in the beginning of Exodus. It's very interesting. When we see, first the word Moshe is mentioned here. The Rambam's name was Moshe. He lives in Egypt, so the word Mitzrayim appears in a page. His abbreviation of his name, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. Rabbi Resh, Moshe Mem, Ben Bet, Maimon Mem. Rambam, that's his nickname. The only time in the entire Torah that you find 4 words that give us this right order, Resh, Mem, Bet, Mem, is right here in the chapter of Bo. That's right here. No other place you have Resh, Mem, Bet in the same order. Also, he was the heart doctor of the king of Egypt. So we have Lev Paro, the heart of Pharaoh. It's another hint. Everything I mentioned so far, it's beautiful hints, but it's still not a scientific proof. From now on is 100% scientific proof. What is it? When we take the word Moshe, the first word Moshe, which is Moses in a chapter, we circle the Mem, and we count 50 letters, we get the letter Shin. We count 50 letters, we get the letter Nun. We count 50 letters, we get the letter Hey. So what did we get? Mishneh. What's the name of his book? As I said before, Mishneh Torah, 2 words and 1 name. Then we go down to the bottom of the page. From the word Oto, him, we circle the Taf, we count 50 letters, we get a Vav, we circle the Vav. We count 50 letters, we get Resh, we circle the Resh. We count 50 letters, we get Hey. So what do we have here? We have the word Mishneh in equal skip of 50. Taf, Mishneh, Mem, Shin, Nun, Hey, 50, 50, 50, 50, yes. And we skip, a longer skip than 50, we'll explain soon why. We go all the way to the bottom of the page, and we get the word Torah in equal skip of 50. However, one slight of a problem we have here still. Why, from the word Mishneh to the word Torah, which is the second word of the same name, there are such a large skip? It should have been also 50, right? If you enter today to the computer a name of a person with his last name, the computer may find that name in equal mathematical skip from the beginning of the first word to the end of the last name, in equal skip. Why here the first word appear in equal skip, the second word appear in equal skip, but in between the first and the second words we have a larger skip? Counting how many letters between the first word Mishneh to the second word Torah give us exactly 613 letters. Let's conclude. 2,400 years before the Rambam Maimonides was born, the Torah told us there will be a person named Moshe. He would live in Egypt. He would be the heart doctor of the king of Egypt. His nickname will be Rambam, Resh Mem Bet Mem. He would write a book called Mishneh Torah. And the subject of the book will be 613 laws of Judaism, 613 commandments. What do you say now? Is it possible that a person wrote it? Obviously not. And as I said before, there are more and more examples. There are many, many equal mathematical skips. Now make no mistakes. Many manipulators in this generation that take advantage on the ignorance of the public, trying to claim that other books also have codes. I assure you, after 15 years of reviewing and checking what they say, that it's all nonsense. We are not only talking about random codes that you can find in or there in a book by coincidence. We are talking about equal minimal. The highlight is the word minimal mathematical skip. What's the difference between minimal and just any other code? When you have a book with 305,000 letters, it's very possible that you're going to find all kinds of names with equal skips of 10,000 between one letter to the other, 20,000 between one letter to the other. That's random. When we enter an input to the computer and we ask the computer to find us a word, the computer may find it sometimes 2 or 3 times in the same Torah, in different skips. We are not interested in any skip, only the minimal one. The smaller the skip is, it's concentrated in one page. And if we put other words that relates to the same subject, usually, almost always, the computer will find those words in the same page. And the best part is that usually the subject, the word that we enter, appears in a Torah in a similar context. For instance, We put the word AIDS, the horrible disease. Where does the Torah find it? In a chapter of Sodom and Gomorrah that speaks about homosexuality. Is it a coincidence? Of course not. This is a sickness that hit mostly gays. And it goes in a chapter that speaks about this sin, which is forbidden according to the laws of God. Same-sex relationship is a horrible sin. Not like they're trying to make it today that it's perfectly fine, and come on, you know, don't be primitive. No, it doesn't go by primitive or modern. It goes by the laws of the Creator, and everything else is not in our hand. What God told us is allowed, what is not allowing us, it's just not allowed. That's it. Whether you like it, you don't like it, it's irrelevant. First the truth, then comes all the other. The convenience is one of the last things you should consider. What's my desire? What's my convenience? How much money it's going to cost me? These things comes after. First the truth. What's the word of God? He knows better than me what's good for me. He created me. He knows, he's the manufacturer. He knows better than me what I should do, what I should not do. Why should I listen to my foolish ideas when God told me what's right and what's wrong? Why will I follow my heart and my desires and my hallucinations if the Torah already told me what's recommended and what is not recommended? Well, we're going to speak about this subject in the third chapter of this lecture as I'm entering there right now. So we conclude here, when the subject that we enter to the computer, it usually finds it in the same place in the Torah that speaks, like I gave before an example about the Holocaust. It appears in a chapter that describes a Holocaust. And when we enter more than 50 names of fruits and vegetables and trees, it all appears in the first chapter of the Torah that describes the creation of the world. That God created the world in 6 days, and in the 7 days he rested. And from that moment on, he described every day in the creation what God created. And he created Adam with a body, and he put a soul into his nostril. He blew a soul, which is a divine energy, into Adam's nostrils, and he opened up his eyes and he started to talk. And that soul, it's eternal. That soul can never die. It's a spark from God himself, as the Torah described. The body is disposable, it's temporary. But the soul is eternal, and the soul is sometimes transferred from one body to the other. That's what we call reincarnation, which was proven already scientifically in this generation by the parapsychologist Dr. Raymond Moody, Dr. Elizabeth Kovler-Ross, Dr. Ian Stevenson. Read their books, check, search in the internet about them. Life after life, life after death, the return from the afterlife, and many other, clinical death, hypnotizing people. People are speaking in different languages, in language that they do not know, and they describe different times of life in different bodies, with different names, different identity. That's, obviously, I don't have the time. Go into my website, I have a whole lecture, close to 3 hours, about reincarnation, clinical death, out-of-body experience, hypnotizing people, and many other examples that prove scientifically that life really begins in a time of death. Once the soul exits the body, the real life of a person begins. The question is what God is going to do with him. But we're going to speak about it soon. So remember, do not be fooled by manipulators that tell you, oh, this book has and the other book, because when they came out with this discovery, they checked 130 books, among them the Quran, the New Testament, many other famous books like Moby Dick and A Peace and a War, and many other famous novels, and they did not find any sufficient codes besides few random ones. Nowhere absolutely they found in one page 10 or 20 or sometimes even more than 30 words relates to the same content, the same subject, in the same page, in the same subject in the Torah. Everything combined perfectly.